Welcome. My name is James. If you're new here, we talk about stress management for truck drivers, especially if you're a truck driver that faces isolation, time away from home, and just all these stressful elements of the job that we encounter as truckers out here, missing family events, being away from our significant other if we are in an intimate relationship, and just missing birthdays and all these things can build up in this industry, causing stress. We like to create awareness on how to lower our stress levels. And in this discussion, I want to break down how stress can sometimes be good. I want to consider the fight or flight system that we experience in certain situations, and maybe even talk about the nervous system, how we are two parts in the nervous system responsible for how we respond or react in stressful environments. Remember the Roadcom app? It's a trucker's app that I have been building for about 8 or 9 months. We have a special team that has been hired. It's a mental wellness tool for truck drivers that hopefully will be coming out soon. We are going to start testing very soon. If you want to learn more about that, just simply visit roadcom.ai and you can enter a good email, and you will be one of the first people to be notified when we launch the Truckers app. So, just to give us a little bit of background education on the fight or flight system, we go back to the time of our ancestors where it was survival times, and we had to either activate a system in our body to either fight in that situation or flee or flight, as we would call it, or maybe even freeze. And so you can begin to imagine during those times where hunter gatherers, for example, had to fight to live, to have food and survive. And so the part of the nervous system that was activated was that survival of the fittest kind of a nervous system that we have to, enable to be able to exist. In other cases where maybe people who had lived during those times where there were dangerous animals, mountain lions, bears, and still to this day, we can activate the certain part of the nervous system, the flight. In other words, we are going to run, hide, or just try to get ourselves out of that situation. And having just a little bit of understanding of how this works, scientifically, you ever had that rush of blood just go down your arms and you feel like you want to react? Well, sometimes we can label that as anxiety. We are fearful, we are scared, and we've activated that part of the nervous system where we are going to respond. But sometimes in anxiety instances, we do not have to activate that part of the nervous system because we are sometimes perfectly fine. We are not in danger. And so that rush that we feel sometimes through our core or through our body is the blood vessels dilating to allow more blood flow or oxygen. And that's why we get that sensation sometimes. And some of us don't realize that that is just simply anxiety and we are perfectly safe. And so, how does this relate in the trucking industry? Sometimes, when we are in traffic or we have people cut us off, or, we are having a bad day with our dispatcher, some of this can cause frustration and anxiety if we are not careful. We have to have an awareness that this is happening, and we have to ask ourselves, am I in danger or am I safe? And most of the time, our reactions, our frustrations, or the things that we might say that we can regret later are not necessary. We just need to, ask ourselves this question sometimes: am I safe or am I in danger? And we will enact or we will trigger that nervous system accordingly. So, this is just a brief explanation of the fight or flight system, and you may have heard of it from doctors or scientists or other experts that help manage stress. But I want to also touch a little bit on how sometimes stress is good for us. There is bad stress, but I want to touch a little bit on how sometimes good stress is good for us, and of course, the bad stress can be bad for us. But let's give an example of good stress. Now, as truck drivers, we are definitely underappreciated because we work long hours, and sometimes when you break down the hourly pay, it's not really worth the time and effort that we are putting in that day. If we were to get a higher hourly, let's say about 30 bucks an hour, you could see the big difference there. And especially if you're just paid by the mile, you can really be getting underpaid there. So sometimes when we think about this a little deeper as truck drivers, that can create some bad stress, and it can be very unhealthy if we do not put it in check. But an example of good stress is you are working long hours, but you're getting compensated and you're getting paid for that time. And especially if you have quarterly bonuses, if you are fortunate to have that as well, you can see that you will put in the hours, you will put in the time, you will make sure that you are uh, resting and exercising and eating right and all this good stuff because you are going to be well paid for it. That's an example of good stress. And it's okay to have good stress in our lives sometimes. It's the one where the bad stress, where we are miserable, we are unhappy, maybe we are arguing a lot with our partner, maybe we are stressing over, finances and not enough money, and maybe something even in our health. And you can see where I'm going with this and how we can frame a bad environment that is unhealthy for us. But remember this: when you are feeling stressed, evaluate or gauge, is this bad stress or good stress? And they also say, experts say that when we are activating that part of the body that is responding to good stress, that actually boosts our immune system. And this is something that I didn't know personally, and I recently learned about this, that experts and doctors say that have studied stress more deeply, that when we are undergoing certain kinds of stresses, it will help us boost our immune system. And that's important because it helps us to fight disease and so on. I usually like to sprinkle in a technique of journaling. And by the way, again, the Roadcom app is going to have this journal feature where we can express our thoughts and to write them down. The app will let you upload a few images, a short video, and just to begin to keep track of your mood and be able to provide a relief valve for you mentally instead of leaving all that clutter up there in your head. And so remember that. If you want to learn more about the Roadcom app, visit roadcom.ai. So now that we understand a little bit about the fight or flight systems, and we understand that there is good stress and bad stress, I want to break down just briefly here two parts of the nervous system: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for that reaction, or for that, part of the nervous system that is going to create the bad stress. And when we are in challenging situations, whether in our relationship or work stress, and we just feel overwhelmed, we are activating the sympathetic nervous system, and it's shaping our entire health this way, to be impulsive, to react. And this is not very healthy because over time we can get sick, we can, create health issues in our body and in our mind if we are not careful And if we continue to consistently activate the sympathetic nervous system over time, that's not healthy. So just be mindful of this, that the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for that stressful environment. In contrast to this, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, and that is responsible for calmness. And when we are in a stressful situation, for example, we had a very bad day. We were not being understood by our dispatcher, or, our partner did not understand something that we were trying to explain to them, and we got in an argument, or, something in your finances. Once again, these are the big three: money, relationships, and health. Something in those categories is just not going right, and nothing is going the way you would like, and it's causing all this stress. So, in order to balance some of this out, we have the other part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, that is going to allow us to introduce certain techniques to bring calmness and balance. And by the way, this is now a good segue to provide us a technique here. And here is a breathing technique that can help us immediately. We don't have to get on a phone with a therapist and wait a very long time to get some help. We don't have to set an appointment to help us with our stress levels. Here is a technique, a breathing one, that we can do, and it goes like this. You take a deep breath, and then another smaller breath that you can squeeze in there, and you blow out. So without me talking and the interruption, it goes like this once again. You can do that a few times, and that is scientifically proven to immediately create some calm in that stressful environment. Of course, there are other breathing techniques, but I have found this one recently that can immediately, once again, relieve some stress in that moment that you are going through. So keep that technique in mind, because it will come in handy. You can do it in the cab, you can do it while you're driving, you can do it uh, before you go to sleep, or just whenever you think you need a quick reset mentally to relieve that stress and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Don't forget about this breathing technique. So, as we summarize this discussion on managing stress as a truck driver, remember there's the fight or flight system that we can activate depending on our situation, and sometimes it's necessary to fight or flee depending on our environment. And then we talked a little bit about the good and bad stress. Remember that good stress can help boost our immune system. And finally, dig a little deeper and learn more about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And if you maybe are not interested in doing that, of course, you can still watch here as we do discuss, stress techniques. And finally, keep in mind the RoadCom app for truck drivers. I have again been building that since last year, and it's a goal that I am trying to achieve for us truck drivers to help us manage our mental health out here as truck drivers, to help us put stress in check, and just to have a journaling feature to be able to express our thoughts. And by the way, they say that men tend to struggle more with expressing emotions and thoughts. There are studies out there that prove this. And of course, we want to be mindful of this as men. We want to have an avenue to still express our emotions and let them out. And I'm thinking that the RoadCom app will be a perfect tool for this, for us to relieve our stress and our thoughts by entering it in a digital journal that we can save, and we can look back and reflect as well, along with images and a video. And the RoadCom app will also have an AI wellness coach to complement the journal feature. So if you want to learn more about that, visit roadcom.ai. I appreciate you watching this video. Continue to follow us here and like and subscribe and share these videos with other truck drivers so that we can all manage stress out here. We are all in the same environment going through these things, and we want to be able to help each other by learning videos like this about on stress and keeping us healthy out here.